You may or may not know, but I was recently a guest on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, The Fallen State. And if you're not familiar with the show, there's a section at the end where he asks his guest a series of rapid questions. It's called the hot seat. He puts his guest on the hot seat. One of the questions he asked me, it's very similar to all of his other guests. He asked them the same questions to each guest. And he asked me, what is a man? And I was prepared for this because I'm a fan of The Fallen State. So I'm going to recollect to the best of my ability what I told Jesse when he asked me that question. First of all, I know I said that, Jesse, we are what we do. So we should not identify based on our thoughts or beliefs. We should identify ourselves based on our actions. And with that being said, either gender, the male or the female gender, is defined by the extent to which the holder of that gender acts in accordance with his or her genitalia. So I said genitalia, and Jesse, you know, if you know Jesse, he was like, what the? That's what he said right away. So I went on to explain, well, let me explain, Jesse. Let me tell you what I'm talking about here. So a man, when he is not called to action, he remains quiet. He is vulnerable. He's also supple when not called to action. But when he is called to action, a man's form dramatically changes. He is straight. He walks tall. He follows a singular piercing line. He has hot blood bubbling through his veins. A man is rigid, unyielding, determined to conquer whatever stands in front of him. Whatever is going to prevent him from victory must be eliminated when a man is called to action. He is piercing, penetrating, promulgating. A man is capable of both destroying and creating at the same time when he is at his best form. A man bears the ultimate responsibility by carrying the seed of his own kind, a seed that contains all of the knowledge and instinct and wisdom of his own people. That's a huge responsibility, and he doesn't take that responsibility lightly. I said all that to Jesse, and Jesse was like, amazing! Because that's his catchphrase, right? So I thought it was a great episode. I'm hoping you get to see it soon. This is a weird intro to a Manowar video. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I told you all of that to tell you all this. There's a reason why the sword is such an iconic visual image in heavy metal music. When a warrior carries a sword into battle, he's carrying not just a weapon. The sword is seen as an extension of that warrior's self. It is a representation of the man's soul, of his very being. So when that warrior clashes swords, when the clash of honor calls on the battlefield, and he clashes his sword against the sword of the men that stand before him, or perhaps he's clashing with existence itself, perhaps that is the battle is that of life, that warrior intends to stand where others fall. By standing and looking down at the fallen enemies around you, at the rubbles of life's challenge around you, that is evidence of that man's merit as a man in this world, in life itself. So is that like the meaning of life for a man, to stand where others fall? No, not necessarily. That's not necessarily the meaning, but I would say that man's best decisions are made with that concept in mind. And it's those sorts of decisions that give a man his life's purpose. I mean, this concept is also the subject of Manowar's greatest song ever, period. The Power of Thy Sword. I do believe that is Manowar's best song. And today, on Czar's Top Shelf, we are going to discuss and listen to The Power of Thy Sword. Good grief, that was a long intro. Thank you for hanging in there for that. We're in the video now. We are going to talk about The Power of Thy Sword. If you ever had to introduce somebody to the music of Manowar and didn't know what song to choose, The Power of Thy Sword, I think, is the best choice, because it is not only a great composition, a great performance, a great studio production, all that kind of stuff. It sounds good, but it represents their music, I think, better than any other song. In my previous video on Manowar, on Battle Hymns and Dark Avenger, I was pretty negative. and I'm still pretty negative. I don't like Manowar at all. I think they're a walking contradiction to themselves. I wish they had retired long, long ago, but I'm not going to get into any of that in this video. This video is going to be 100% positive. The Triumph of Steel is the album where Joey DeMaio kicked Scott and Ross the Boss out of the band and replaced them with Rhino and David Schenkel. And if I'm being honest, I think that was probably a good decision. I think Ross the Boss was a fantastic guitarist, and he probably could play much of what Schenkel plays on this, but there's no way in hell that Scott Columbus could even touch Rhino on the drums. I mean, it's like night and day comparison. And I actually wish that those two guys stayed with the band for the albums after this. I think that would have possibly changed the whole trajectory of how Manowar fell apart shortly after this album. I also think it's the best produced Manowar album as well. Joey's bass has never sounded better. I mean, the quality of his bass on this album is, he has the low tones and the high tones. Sometimes he plays the bass like a guitar, and you really get the best of both worlds audibly on this album. His bass just cuts through the mix in a way that is not obnoxious or annoying. It's a very tastefully mixed album. On top of that, the compositions, I think, are Manowar's most adventurous. Achilles, Agony, and Ecstasy at the beginning is almost like a little mini album in itself. I don't think any other incarnation of Manowar would be capable of performing that. So, adventurous. This album is adventurous, and I think their musical chops were better here than at any other point of their career. Let's talk for a minute about the cover of The Triumph of Steel. I think this is Manowar's best album cover. It's certainly my favorite, and it's probably my favorite Ken Kelly painting as well. I got rid of most of my Manowar merchandise. I kept this hooded sweatshirt. I've got that Battle Hymns cut-off shirt that you saw in the other video, and this poster. I have the tour poster for The Triumph of Steel hanging in my workshop because I just couldn't bear to get rid of it. It is such a beautiful piece of art, and it very accurately represents the feeling of this album as well. I mean, just look at it. You've got the Dark Avenger is crouching on a pile of his fallen enemies, the skulls, the bones of his enemies. All of that is perched atop the gates of hell itself. You could even hear, like if you look in the tunnel of hell, there's the demon with his whip. You can kind of hear that demon's whip echo below him. The Demon's Whip is also a great song from this album. And then, of course, in Manowar fashion, there's several women surrounding the Dark Avenger, some of them with wings, some of them not, all beckoning for his attention. I especially like the gal on the side over there making the sign of hammer, showing her allegiance to Manowar. What a great cover. They just don't make album covers like this anymore. While on the subject of women, let's talk about this for a moment. This could be a whole video in itself, but I'm going to try to be very brief here. Heavy metal is music made by men for men. By men for men. Or at least it used to be. It should be. It's not anymore. The world has changed, but ideally, heavy metal is a man's music. Now, that doesn't mean that women can't appreciate heavy metal. I mean, think about it logically. If you are a woman who likes men, it would only be logical that you would be attracted to masculine artwork, artwork that represents and depicts that which you love. That completely makes sense. The difference is when the artist, the creator of that art, be it heavy metal or paintings or literature, whatever it might be, when that creator alters his trajectory to appeal to a female audience. That's where things really change. So there obviously you can see in the last several decades that there is a female force in heavy metal that has completely altered the output. It's the music that we have now is far more sedated. The masculine trends, the concepts that gave rise to Manowar. There's a reason why we couldn't have an album like The Triumph of Steel now, and we couldn't have a band like Manowar rise up and become as popular as they were. And the fault for that is not on the women. I want to be very clear about that. The demise of heavy metal, the feminizing of heavy metal, is man's fault. Men didn't lose heavy metal to women. Men forfeited heavy metal to women. Every band has a girl in it now, and it's not like those girls forced their way into the bands, right? Men invited those girls into the band. I think that there's a component here. If you think of the old days, perhaps the fan club of a band was run by somebody in the band's girlfriend or wife if the band was already over the hill. Most bands, once the leader of the band gets married, things start to fall apart. But let's pretend it's their girlfriend. The female would run the fan club of the band, and that is a place for her to use her strengths as a female to the band's best interest. The difference is now there really aren't fan clubs anymore. What has replaced fan clubs? Well, the social media ecosystem that all musicians, whether they're heavy metal or not, are forced to be compliant to. And all of that is facilitated by women. And again, I don't blame women for taking that role. The ruinous women to heavy metal, they have ruined heavy metal. They're not doing it maliciously. They have no ill intent at all. Most of the time, these women have a general affinity for heavy metal. They want to interact with the bands. They want to promote the bands. They want to be a champion for that which they fell in love with initially. The problem is if they knew what was best for them, they would admire this music from the sidelines. Because by getting involved in it to the extent that they have, they've bastardized the thing that they once loved. They've robbed themselves of the masculine music that attracted them in the first place. This extends into the whole idea of like a barbarian woman, a big sword-wielding woman. It makes no sense. Because the sword is such an iconic allegory for masculinity, seeing a female warrior carrying a sword, it just looks absurd. It doesn't make any sense. And yet, it baffles me that men are creating that aesthetic, that ideal, that image of a female barbarian warrior is not created by women, it's created by men. You know, I don't even think the men know what's in their best interest. We could say, not we, I'm sure you disagree with this. I am saying that women don't know what's best for them by getting so entrenched in heavy metal and ruining it for themselves. The same applies to men. Men don't know what's best for them either. I think most of the world doesn't know what's best for it. But men have invited this in and have tainted all of the things that made them feel like men in the first place. So what does that mean? Maybe nobody knows what's in their best interest? Possibly, but there is an ideal we can look towards for guidance when we think about our own self-interest. And that ideal is the Dark Avenger. Yes, I'm bringing this back to the reason you clicked on the video if I haven't scared you off already. The Dark Avenger knows what's in his best interest. He was born to die in battle. Yes, he knows this, and he laughs at his fate. His enemies will pay in blood and never be forgiven until death is fulfilled. Yes, I'm already into the lyrics of The Power of Thy Sword. Let me stop talking about the lyrics. Let's listen to The Power of Thy Sword together, because the lyrics of this song are so bloody good that I need to call out some of the key things that are said here. So I'm going to stop talking. We're going to listen to the song together. I'll pause it every so often. Get ready. Here comes The Power of Thy Sword. That is just the perfect serrated guitar riff. Just that picking is so sharp, so pristine. It just looks like a saw blade going across your vision as you just hear that opening riff. This song was such a major influence on my writing. I'm a sword and sorcery author, amongst other things, and the story Einhander from my first book was heavily inspired by this song, especially the opening sequence. When I hear that serrated guitar, I just envision a warrior running into battle, running down a hillside, his feet tapping double time in tempo with the song, just running right into the battlefield. And then when the choir comes in, it's like the gods of war have anointed him. They're blessing the carnage he's about to bring on the battlefield. Oh, it is just so good. And this song just gets better.
Lord of battle, I pray up unto thee. Conquest by the rising sun. I'll wait for thy command with flame and blood at hand. Glory and a broken sword. I'm the master of the world. I have no fear of man or beast. Born inside the soul of the world. Riding hard, breaking bone with steel and stone. Eternal might I was born to wield. Let us.
The very idea of a man being the master of the world, like wielding eternal might, that very idea is anathema to our current time. The current climate of the world is just, that just sounds preposterous to probably anybody that's under, I don't know, 30 years old or something. But that is the heart of masculine heavy metal. The heart of true metal is a man dominating the world with eternal might. And Eric Adams, God bless Eric Adams, he delivers these lines with such confidence. And he delivers them with confidence, like not just in terms of singing, but he basically embodies the role of the character of whatever song he's singing. His voice is just the piercing dominance over the world in this song, as the character of this song professes. God damn, it is just so, so, so good.
Straight to the battles we lived and we fought. Celebrate the pain and havoc we have wrought. Great heroes charge into the fight from the north to the south in the black of night.
Oh man, I'm stopping right at the chorus. I'm screwing up all the pauses here, but I gotta tell you, celebrating the pain and havoc we have wrought. Celebrating the pain and havoc we have wrought. Celebrating the suffering of your enemies. That is such an important idea of the glory days of Manowar. So many of their songs deal with this theme, the demise of your enemies and drinking their blood, laughing as they die. This is why the Dark Avenger is always pictured standing on top of a pile of skulls of his slain enemies. And God, the truth of it is, a man should rejoice when his enemy suffers, regardless of what that enemy is, whether that enemy is a human being, a force of nature, existence itself, conquering and causing that which wishes you harm, that which threatens your own survival. Seeing that threatening force suffer, it should bring a man great joy to see that. That is one of the main pleasures of life for a man. Heavy metal and the world in general, it's just obsessed with this compulsion towards unjustified compassion. That is not metal. This is metal. I interrupted the chorus. Let's keep playing so you could hear this chorus is so good. Ah, yes. Fierce is my hate. Fierce is my hate. Love and hate are equally important. to a man, to anybody, to a woman as well. Love and hate are the yin and the yang of our life. You can't give up hatred for the sake of love. You have to have both to be well balanced, to be a natural man in the natural world. It is completely virtuous to hate your enemies, to never forgive them until the enemy is dead, till it no longer threatens your survival. There's something else about this song that is, and I mentioned this in previous videos of similar themed songs, is that this song tells a bit of a story, but it's deliberately vague about it. There's not like specific characters to the song. It's vague so that the listener can internalize what is being described and relate it to their own life. I did a video on the Britain Wrights song, "In Hell I Will Rule." Check that out. I'm not going to repeat myself, but I talk a lot about the importance of a song that it doesn't sacrifice the meaning, the purpose of the song for the narrative. When you listen to this, I mean, you could just, as a listener, you could join in with the Dark Avenger on this quest for battle. Whatever blocks you in your way of life, you can destroy it and make it suffer and rejoice in your hatred towards that what blocks you. It doesn't have to be something specific. That's the genius of a song like this. That's what makes a song like this poetic. Heaven forbid Manowar could be poetic, but when they were at their best, they were extremely poetic, perhaps more poetic than any other metal band for that matter. Let's keep playing it. David Schenkel and Rhino really shine on this album. I think David Schenkel was at his best on this album. And Rhino, I think Rhino, he continued to perform wonderfully in various other bands after that. This was just such a perfect album for their incorporation. And like I said, I really wish they could have been part of future records after this. At this point of the song, we get to like this other just quintessential Manowar moment. I think that the moment you're going to hear next is just, for me personally, this is what defines Manowar, because it becomes quiet and introspective. The Dark Avenger, the warrior on the battlefield, has a moment of doubt, so to speak. He questions his valor. He questions his self. He questions his motivation. He's about ready to give up. Perhaps he is wounded. He's down on one knee, looking up at the enemy towering above him, and he's feeling hopeless and despondent and just ready to throw in the towel. But does he throw in the towel? Of course not. Of course he doesn't throw in the towel, because the idealism and the romanticism that made Manowar great in the beginning is incorporated into this song. Of course he does rise, and he does stand where others fall. But it's moments like this, these introspective moments, that I don't know if Manowar even understands, but this is what won the hearts of so many Manowar fans in the beginning. It's certainly what won my heart, and anyone that I've ever talked to on an intimate level about Manowar. These are the moments that won their hearts as well. It's stuff like this that matters most to these songs, and to Manowar in particular. So there's going to be a long, quiet part. Let me play this out here for about a minute. You'll hear what I'm saying. I always imagine this part of the song, like I said a moment ago, where he's just down on one knee, ready to just die, ready to be beheaded by someone holding an axe above him because he's just fallen in battle. And the gods of war give him a sign with this magic door. The door not only represents his gateway to Valhalla as a proud warrior, but the door is like superimposed atop the enemy, in front of the enemy that stands above him and before him. And his pathway is through that magic door, through that enemy. In other words, his gateway to Valhalla is by penetrating through his enemy. And this is like that. I've said it in many other videos, like every great song, any mature song needs to have some sort of realization, some sort of epiphany moment of the character of the song, which is an epiphany for you, the listener. And then this is it for this song. Let me back it up just the hair, and then we're going to play it out from here for the next little bit. Check this out. Man. I hate to interrupt this, but I got to tell you, like the line, there's blood on my hands, there is blood in my eyes, there's blood in my voice. I scream as you die. I think that is probably my favorite heavy metal line of all time, at least in this moment here in the song. Anytime I listen to The Power of Thy Sword, that is my favorite heavy metal line of all heavy metal ever, period. And it's delivered by possibly the greatest vocalist of all time. When Eric Adams was at his peak, there was no touching him. He just embodies the characters or the figures of his songs with his voice in just a genius and natural way. He doesn't sound like he's doing a voice. This is him. He is the Dark Avenger when he sings from that perspective. So good. It's so good. There's such a feeling of ascension in this moment of the song. It's like, it's ecstasy. It's ecstasy on the battlefield. The ecstasy of battle takes me where my falcon flies. Immortal youth was granted me. I shall never die. Man, Manowar was so good. It is such a damn shame what happened to that band. It is just heartbreaking what's become of Manowar. I'm going to be positive. This is a positive video. I told you at the beginning it's a positive video. You get another bit of insane David Shankle shredding, and then more instrumental bits, and the song fades out. I normally hate songs that fade out, but in this sense, it's kind of appropriate because the fade out conveys a sense of eternity, that the battle goes on and on and on. And because he is in this victorious moment, that victorious moment will be persistent for the remainder of his life because he overcame that which stood against him. Played on out to the end. Holy hell! What more can I say? There are no more words. I've said what I can say. The music speaks for itself. It's just such a perfect example of masculine music from a bygone era, an era that we're never going to know again. But this was peak era Manowar, the 1990s. That is when Manowar stood where other bands fell. That's it. I've got nothing to say. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Czar's Top Shelf, and I hope I see you in the next video.